Chapter 197. On the boundless sea, a figure was flying at high speed. On the back of this figure, there were two wings like that of a large bird. However, this pair of wings were like blazing flames. As it flew past, even the air was scorched to the point of distorting. Yang Kai had left the hidden island for a day and night. He had been flying for a day and a night, carrying two large bags in his hands. One bag was the heaven and earth treasures collected from the hidden island, and the other bag was the things on the stone shelf. Flying with these two bags was really not a good thing. There were several times when Yang Kai wanted to throw them all into the sea, but he couldn't bear to do so. The yang liquid in the dantian was decreasing all the time. The yang inflammation wings required a huge amount of yuan qi. In just one day, he had lost nearly 200 drops of yang liquid. If he hadn't made sufficient preparations before, it would definitely not be enough to support Yang Kai's return to Sea City. The alien insects were left on the hidden island. Although these insects were very obedient and sometimes very useful, Yang Kai really didn't know how to take them away, so he could only reluctantly give them up. The sea stretched as far as the eye could see, and the blue sea water undulated beneath him, reflecting the clear blue sky. It gave birth to a feeling of insignificance and panic for no reason. Fortunately, the weather was good these days, and Yang Kai didn't encounter the storm that he was worried about. After flying for so long, Yang Kai was really tired. The head-on wind almost made his face numb. His physical consumption was serious, but he didn't feel tired mentally. Yang Kai estimated that it was related to the soul-warming lotus. This supreme saint quality item was absorbed into his body and warmed his spirit, so naturally he didn't feel tired. Squinting his eyes, about 50 miles ahead, there were traces of a small island. Yang Kai's expression shook, and he quickly turned and flew in that direction. Not long after he arrived. With the flaming yang wings, the speed at which he could travel was truly incredible. When he arrived, Yang Kai saw that it wasn't an island at all. It was just a stone that covered an area of about a few feet. He didn't know why it was protruding from the sea. He didn't care so much and quickly put down the two bags in his hands, collapsed on the stone like a pile of mud, and took deep breaths. After a long time, Yang Kai recovered. He rubbed his face with both hands and slowly recovered the feeling in his face. Young master's strength hasn't reached the Yuan Qi stage. After reaching the Yuan Qi stage with the Yuan Qi protection, flying won't be so uncomfortable. The old demon comforted him. I know why cultivators below Yuan Qi, even cultivators with flying artifacts, don't dare to use it. Actually, young master, you're already doing well. If not for the fact that you refined a few drops of blood-congealing pearls earlier on and your qi and blood aren't vigorous enough, you wouldn't have been able to last this long. After recovering for half a day, Yang Kai set off again. After another day and night, Yang Kai finally saw the distant land appear in his eyes. The yang inflammation wings on his back were too eye-catching, and the two bags in his hands couldn't be exposed. Otherwise, he would definitely attract a fatal disaster. He deliberately found a remote place, and after confirming that there was no one around, he landed. After checking, he found that there were only a few drops of yang liquid left in the dantian. In 2 days, he had consumed more than 400 drops of yang liquid. If he hadn't been prepared beforehand, he would have been unable to bear such a loss. Looking around, Yang Kai was unfamiliar with this place, but he felt that it shouldn't be far from Sea City. Because on Yun Xia's ship, he had been observing the direction every day. This time, when he left Hidden Island, he also flew in the opposite direction. After walking for a long time, he finally reached the main road. Yang Kai was now covered in dust, and his clothes were tattered. He looked no different from a poor person. However, the two bags were somewhat tempting. If he encountered a bandit on the street, he was afraid that it would be troublesome. Walking along the main road, he passed by a small tea house. After asking the couple selling tea, Yang Kai realized that he was indeed a bit off track. This place was 1,000 miles away from Sea City. After determining the location, Yang Kai once again spread out his yang inflammation wings and flew in the direction of Sea City. There was still a grudge that had not been settled. An hour later, Yang Kai arrived near Sea City. He didn't immediately enter the city, but instead looked for the old man and his granddaughter's residence by the sea. The tattered door was wide open, and the sea breeze poured into the house, making the whole house seem unusually cold. Stepping in, Yang Kai found that the furnishings in the house were no different from the night he was captured. The old man and the silent little girl were no longer there. They should have already left. When he left that night, he gave the old man a lot of money, enough for him and the little girl to live a carefree life for several lifetimes. As long as he was careful, he wouldn't have to suffer any more in the future. Finding a safe and secluded place nearby, Kai Yang carefully hid the 2 parcels and only took 1 earth-grade mid-rank spirit medicine to exchange for some silver coins. One day later, Yang Kai appeared in Sea City. He didn't do anything, he just went around to inquire about useful information. For the next few days, Yang Kai spied on various aspects of information, returning to his house by the sea at night. 3 days later, Yang Kai made his move. His goal was the Red Cloud sect. Although the death of the 3 Jiang family girls had little to do with the Red Cloud sect, it was still somewhat involved. What's more, Yang Kai and the Red Cloud sect had an irreconcilable grudge. The parents of the silent little girl should also have died in the Red Cloud sect. One night, Yang Kai quietly flew out and made some arrangements. There was no need to do anything, he just needed to watch from the sidelines. Early morning, Ancient Cloud Island. The disciples woke up from their cultivation, each performing their own duties, dealing with the big and small matters on the island. As a first-class force in the Endless Sea Islands, Ancient Cloud Island occupied as many as 3 islands. Compared to the Red Cloud sect, whether it was in terms of capital or the quality of their disciples, they were far superior. Relying on the resources produced on these 3 islands, the disciples were able to live up to expectations. For hundreds of thousands of years, they had produced many geniuses. Although they couldn't compete with a transcendent force like the Supreme Solitary Sect, their reputation was still illustrious, and few dared to provoke them. However, the disciples of Ancient Cloud Island all knew that their sect had a secret that they couldn't talk about. 300 years ago, they had lost a supreme secret art and had never been able to find it. Such a secret existed in every great force in the Endless Sea Islands. However, the younger generation were very curious about these things, so if there was even the slightest leak, they would always try to get to the bottom of it. 1 spread to 2, 2 spread to 3, and in private, everyone was well aware of this secret, but they would never discuss it in front of the sect elders. Zhong Miao was an ordinary disciple of Ancient Cloud Island. Her aptitude wasn't very good. After entering the island for several years, she had only managed to cultivate to the Qi transformation 2nd stage. She was arranged to live in a remote place on Ancient Cloud Island, feeding the several peacocks on the island. These peacocks were the favorite pets of one of the island's elders. Zhong Miao didn't have much to do, so besides taking care of these peacocks, she spent all her time diligently cultivating. She knew that with her mediocre aptitude, wanting to stand out on Ancient Cloud Island was harder than ascending to the heavens. However, she didn't complain to the heavens or anyone else, just doing her best was enough. When she woke up in the morning, Zhong Miao opened the door as usual, wanting to feed the peacocks that were much nobler than her, but just as she stepped over the threshold, she saw a dagger inserted into the door, and under the dagger was a letter. Strange, who would leave a letter here? Zhong Miao was puzzled but still reached out and took the letter. Looking down, she saw a line of words written on it. Ancient Cloud Island's Elder, Island Master. Zhong Miao suddenly pouted, thinking that it was some senior sister or brother who was teasing her. It wasn't like this had never happened before. Her strength was low, her status was low, she had no connections, and she wasn't beautiful. There were always some annoying brother or senior sister who would find ways to bully her for fun. On top of that, the line of words on this letter was too strange. It actually said Island Master or Elder. Since it's for the Island Master or Elder, why put it on my door? Zhong Miao's chest heaved up and down, feeling a little wronged. These people were really too annoying. Feeling slightly annoyed, she opened the letter and pulled out a yellowed page. Looking at it, she whispered softly, "Broken Moon Transformation Art?" As soon as she read it out loud, her expression froze for a moment. Why does it sound so familiar? Moreover, This yellowed page seemed to be quite old. It was at least a few hundred years old antique. Broken moon transformation art? Zhong Miao muttered to herself again as some information flashed across the depths of her mind. Her pair of eyes suddenly widened as her pretty face filled with disbelief. Her two jade white hands couldn't help trembling, as if the pages of the book had suddenly become scalding hot. Isn't this the name of that supreme secret art? She had heard in private that the secret art lost by the sect 300 years ago was called the Broken Moon Transformation Art. A few days ago, she had heard the elder who came to visit the peacocks say that if it weren't for the Broken Moon Transformation Art being lost, the cultivation speed of the talented brother and senior sister on the island would have been much faster. Is this true or false? Zhong Miao suddenly became flustered, and she wanted to cry. Glancing at the yellowed page again, she quickly stuffed it back into the letter, not even caring about the peacocks, lifting her skirt and running out. Along the way, she encountered a few annoying brother and senior sister, but Zhong Miao didn't even hear how they ridiculed her. After running for more than a dozen kilometers, she finally arrived at the residence of the owner of the peacocks, Han Zhao. But before she could enter, she was stopped by her two brothers. "What do you want?" One of them coldly shouted. Zhong Miao gasped for breath, and after a long time calmed down, clutching her chest and trembling as she said, "Two brother, I want to see Elder Han, I have something important to report." Although her status was low, she knew that this matter was of great importance and did not dare to speak about the Broken Moon Transformation Art casually. The brother sneered and said, "Elder Han is in seclusion, he won't see anyone." "You really have something important to report?" Zhong Miao said anxiously as she tried to rush inside, but was unexpectedly pushed back by her brother. "You're just a little girl who feeds the peacocks. What kind of important matter could you possibly have?" The other man chuckled, apparently looking down on his junior sister. Zhong Miao puffed up her cheeks and glared at her two brothers, but since they refused to let her pass, she couldn't do anything. Helplessly, her mind raced, and without knowing where she found the courage, she put her hands around her mouth and shouted, "Elder Han, bad news, your peacocks are all dead." Chapter 198. A girl's voice was crisp and penetrating, coupled with the fact that it was early in the morning and this was the elder's residence. There wasn't much noise in the surrounding area. Zhong Miao's shout could be said to have traveled 10 kilometers, allowing all the nearby ancient Cloud Island disciples to hear it clearly. When the two brothers in front of her heard this, their faces instantly turned white, their legs going soft, and they almost fell to the ground. The nearby ancient Cloud Island disciples who were walking or cultivating were also stunned for a moment before they hurriedly ran away. With Zhong Miao's shout, it was as if she had unleashed a deadly forbidden technique, causing everyone to flee for their lives. It's over, Elder Han's peacocks are actually dead, they were Elder Han's lifeblood." Although these peacocks were just ordinary beasts, they were all rescued and raised by Elder Han's late wife. Elder Han Chao was a sentimental man. After his wife passed away, he had placed all of his thoughts on these peacocks and would visit them every few days. His attitude towards these peacocks was even closer than that towards his own sons. But now they were all dead. All the ancient Cloud Island disciples who heard those words could imagine how angry Elder Han would be. When the city gates caught fire, the fish in the moat would be implicated. If they didn't escape now, when Elder Han's anger flared up, they would be implicated. Little girl, do you know what you're saying?" The brother in front of Zhong Miao was terrified, his words somewhat incoherent. He also wanted to run, but he didn't have the courage. "Who's talking nonsense?" A roar came from Han Chao's residence. The next moment, an old man with white hair and beard shot out like lightning, landing in front of Zhong Miao and the two ancient Cloud Island disciples. It was Elder Han Chao. Looking over, they saw Han Chao with bloodshot eyes, wearing nothing but pajamas, his feet bare. Apparently, he hadn't even had time to change his clothes or put on his shoes before rushing out in a hurry. The supreme pressure of an immortal ascension boundary master suddenly fell, causing Zhong Miao and her two disciples to involuntarily shiver. Han Chao's pair of eyes were filled with murderous intent. Sweeping his gaze around, he fixed it on Zhong Miao and snapped, "What happened to this old master's peacocks?" Zhong Miao was scared half to death and didn't dare to answer. Lowering his head, he held the letter with both hands and respectfully handed it over. Han Chao suspiciously looked at this female disciple who was looking after his peacock. He reached out and took the letter. Taking a deep breath and suppressing the anger in his heart, he casually pulled out a yellowed page from the letter and casually glanced at it. In the next moment, Han Chao's eyes widened like a quail in the middle of winter with nowhere to hide. His entire body was trembling incessantly, and his throat was making sounds. It was as if he had swallowed a piece of bone that was stuck in his throat. He couldn't say anything for a long time. When the two male disciples saw this scene, they suddenly felt a chill run down their spines. It seemed that Peacock's death had dealt a heavy blow to Elder Han. Even though he was an immortal ascension boundary master, at this moment he was unable to bear it. Elder Han, Zhong Miao called out weakly. Han Chao woke up from his stupor and quickly stuffed the yellowed pages back into the letter. Stomping his foot angrily, he scolded Zhong Miao. "Such a big thing, why didn't you report it earlier?" The two male disciples' hearts clenched and they quietly stepped back a few steps, afraid they would be implicated. Both of them stared at Zhong Miao with some sympathy. Zhong Miao said with an aggrieved expression, "I only found out this morning and quickly came to report it. These two brothers wouldn't let me in, so I called out." "Elder, it's not our fault." The two male disciples' legs went soft and they quickly knelt down and begged for mercy. Han Chao didn't pay any attention to them, his figure flashing and disappearing. Zhong Miao and the other two were stunned. Before they could breathe a sigh of relief, Han Chao returned, his eyes sweeping over Zhong Miao like a hawk, and asked, "No one else knows about this, right?" Zhong Miao quickly shook her head. "Good job, come with me." Han Chao grabbed Zhong Miao's arm and disappeared again. After waiting for a long time, the two kneeling disciples finally dared to slowly get up, glancing at each other, both of them somewhat confused and speechless. "Is this elder too angry?" The peacocks were all dead, so why was he still praising his junior sister for doing a good job? Shouldn't he be teaching her a lesson? Moreover, his junior sister's shout should have been heard by everyone on Ancient Cloud Island, so how could no one else know? Ancient Cloud Island's island master's residence, Zhong Miao knelt in the main hall, surrounded by silence, not a single person in sight. After Han Chao brought her here, he no longer cared about her, but Zhong Miao found that all the elders and protectors on the island had hurried to this hall. A group of 70 to 80-year-old men had gathered together, discussing something. After waiting for half a day, this group of people came out with dignified expressions and left one by one, leaving behind only Elder Han Chao and Ancient Cloud Island's island master Gu Feng. The two of them walked over to Zhong Miao together, Gu Feng gently saying, "Get up." "Disciple doesn't dare." Zhong Miao lowered her head. Gu Feng chuckled and casually threw an item in front of Zhong Miao, saying, "Take this token and go to the pill hall to get some pills you need, then go to the profound spirit cave to cultivate." Zhong Miao trembled as she stared at Gu Feng in disbelief. Profound Spirit Cave. That was the cultivation holy land with the richest world energy density on Ancient Cloud Island. Cultivating there was 3 times more efficient than anywhere else. Only those with outstanding talent who were considered by the elders to have a bright future, such as her brother, senior sister, and senior sister, could go there. A nobody like her could even dream of going there. But now, the island master actually ordered her to go to the profound spirit cave to cultivate? Moreover, she could go to the pill hall to get pills? The token in front of her was the island master's token. Holding it was equivalent to the island master himself, capable of commanding all the disciples on Ancient Cloud Island. Don't doubt it, this is what you deserve. Han Chao, who had never given her a smile before, was now looking at her with an amiable smile, as if he was her grandfather. Suddenly changing the subject, Han Chao said, "But remember, no matter who asks you about today's matter, disciple doesn't know anything." Zhong Miao was not a fool and naturally knew how to answer. Han Chao nodded with satisfaction and waved his hand. "Go." "Many thanks, Island Master. Many thanks, Elder Han." Zhong Miao happily thanked him, feeling like she had hit the jackpot today. She had only found a letter on the door and had actually obtained such a huge benefit. Who was this benefactor who had left her such a blessing? Not even revealing his name, in the future she would not be able to find him to repay this kindness. Picking up the island master's token, Zhong Miao floated out of the hall, still feeling like she had just woken up from a dream. On ancient Cloud Island, the undercurrents were surging. Some of the more astute disciples noticed that all the masters on the island were hurriedly gathering in one place, but no one knew what they were busy with, faintly giving off an oppressive feeling like a storm was brewing. At midnight, many of ancient Cloud Island's masters gathered together and boarded a large ship, heading towards a certain direction. 200 of ancient Cloud Island's masters were gathered on the ship, with the island master himself, 4 great elders, 3 protectors, and countless Yuan Qi masters. Of the people on the ship, even the weakest was a separation and reunion boundary cultivator. Except for a limited number of people who knew the truth, everyone else was confused. The next day at dawn, the ship approached an island. "Isn't that Red Cloud's island?" someone recognized. "What are we doing here?" Although Red Cloud's sect was only a third-class force, not comparable to ancient Cloud Island in terms of heritage, it was still a sect. The Endless Sea Islands forces generally developed independently, each mind their own business. No one had expected that the destination of this voyage would actually be Red Cloud's island. Did they want to go to war with Red Cloud's sect? Gu Feng was a tall and sturdy man, his eyes flashing like lightning. Standing at the bow of the ship, he shouted, "This island master has received reliable news that my ancient Cloud Island's Broken Moon transformation art, which was lost 300 years ago, is now in Red Cloud's sect." Broken Moon transformation art. Everyone on the ship was in an uproar. This was ancient Cloud Island's supreme secret art, lost 300 years ago and still not found, so how could it suddenly appear in Red Cloud's sect? Gu Feng obviously didn't want to explain too much, so he continued, "Today, search Red Cloud's sect. We must find the Broken Moon transformation art and fulfill the wishes of my ancient Cloud Island's ancestors. If there is any resistance, kill without mercy. If there is any lying, kill without mercy. Today's battle is for the Broken Moon transformation art. If we can find it, all of you will be heroes of my ancient Cloud Island." Set foot on the island. Gu Feng waved his hand, and the masters on the ship quickly set foot on Red Cloud's island. A short time later, mournful screams rang out from Red Cloud Island, mixed with the sounds of fighting and cursing. It was currently dawn, the time when everyone was most relaxed. Ancient Cloud Island had come prepared, and had even launched a sneak attack. With unparalleled strength, how could Red Cloud's sect possibly resist? The 2 remaining Supreme Elders came out to resist, but they were all killed by Ancient Cloud Island's elders. The Red Cloud sect's sect master and elders were all killed. Wherever Ancient Cloud Island's masters went, people were thrown off their feet. On this day, Red Cloud sect's blood flowed like a river, corpses piled up like mountains. More than half of the island's disciples were killed or injured, and all the separation and reunion boundary masters were slaughtered. Found it, I found it, huh? Han Chao's hands trembled as he searched the body of a Red Cloud sect elder and found a yellowed ancient book. It was ancient Cloud Island's Broken Moon transformation art. Hurriedly bringing this supreme secret art back to the ship, he handed it over to Gu Feng. The island lord of ancient Cloud Island, the master, also burst into tears, his voice trembling as he said, "The heavens have blessed this Gu Yun. After 300 years, the Broken Moon transformation art has finally been found. My Gu Yun ancestors, you can all rest in peace." Han Chao excitedly asked, "Island Lord, what should we do with the remaining Red Cloud's sect disciples?" Gu Feng's expression was cold. With only one word, he had decided the fate of the Red Cloud's sect disciples. Regardless of how the Broken Moon transformation art had fallen into the hands of the Red Cloud sect, or how many people had seen this unique book, if they were all killed, no one would know the secret of the Broken Moon transformation art. In order to ensure that Gu Yun's supreme secret art was not leaked, what was the point of slaughtering an entire island? Chapter 199. However, there was a doubt in Gu Feng's heart, and that was, who was the one behind all this? He was old and experienced, so he knew that this person must have some kind of grudge with the Red Cloud sect and wanted to kill with a borrowed knife, so he deliberately leaked the whereabouts of the Broken Moon transformation art. Otherwise, how could there be such a coincidence? But even though Gu Feng was clear about this, he had no choice but to comply with this person's wishes and become his butcher knife. Because the Broken Moon transformation art was too important to ancient Cloud Island. Who was this person? With such a scheming method, he really couldn't be underestimated. At this moment, in a restaurant in Sea City, Yang Kai was sitting by the window, holding a glass of wine in his hand, looking in the direction of Red Cloud Island, his expression indifferent. Drinking and eating. Yang Kai sat there from morning until night, not moving at all. The battle on Red Cloud Island also lasted from morning until night. Almost all of the disciples were slaughtered, only a few fish managed to escape. Of the 200 people from ancient Cloud Island, only 30 were injured or killed, while destroying a third-class sect. This price was well worth it. Night fell again. Yang Kai threw down a silver ingot and slowly left the restaurant. All he did was to leave the Broken Moon transformation art in Red Cloud sect, take a page and send it to ancient Cloud Island. That was all. With a flip of his hand, Red Cloud Island was destroyed. Sea City, 1,000 Gold Wine Pavilion. This was a place to seek pleasure, a place to hide filth. The girls were dressed up with heavy makeup, gorgeously dressed, and wearing revealing clothes. Their charm was boundless as they leaned against the handrails on the second floor, laughing and greeting each other. Outside the entrance, there were also many charming girls openly soliciting customers. From time to time, a well-dressed man would be pulled into the pavilion. Half of the street was filled with the rich fragrance of rouge and girls. Yang Kai came to the front of the 1,000 Gold Wine Pavilion alone. Just as he was about to step inside, a young girl about 17 or 18 years old walked up to him. This young girl also had delicate features, but her makeup couldn't hide her delicate features. The young girl's beautiful eyes were full of expectation, and she smiled sweetly, "Good night, young lord." Her voice was clear and sweet, making Yang Kai's eyes light up. Speaking of which, since the last time he was aroused by Yu Ao Qing on Hidden Island, he had suppressed it for a long time. With the improvement of his cultivation and strength, the effects of the joyous unification art were slowly becoming stronger. Now that he saw this young girl, Yang Kai's mind couldn't help but be swayed. Here, as long as you paid, you could do whatever you wanted. There were no moral restraints. Everyone played along and took what they needed. It was just a transaction. After one night, no one would remember who it was. It was a good place to vent their anger. But when he thought about how this seemingly pure girl had been tasted by countless others, Yang Kai couldn't help but feel a bit bored. The girl observed his expression and smiled sweetly. "Is this the first time you've come to a place like this?" Kai Yang blushed a little and stubbornly said, "No." Although the young girl wasn't very old, she had been in this business for a long time. Naturally, she wouldn't tear down Yang Kai's face. Instead, she stepped forward and stretched out her jade arm to hold onto Yang Kai's arm. "If young lord wants to seek pleasure, why don't you let this servant serve you well?" Kai Yang nodded his head indifferently, his expression indifferent. The young girl giggled and led Yang Kai inside, intentionally or unintentionally bumping into Yang Kai's elbow as they walked. Being stimulated by her, Yang Kai's breathing became slightly heavy. The young girl was more and more certain that this was the first time this young lord had come to this kind of place. Entering the inner hall, a burst of hot air hit his face. Since it was a brothel, the scene inside was naturally somewhat unsightly. The engravings and murals on the walls, as well as the screens, tables, and chairs placed in the lobby, were all patterns that would cause one's imagination to run wild. Yang Kai swept his eyes around and was shocked. It turns out there are so many strange and unimaginable things. When I return to High Heaven Pavilion, I'll have to find Su Yen and try it out. The lobby was filled with constant laughter. Some people were openly flirting with the young girl in their arms, some were passionately kissing, and some were even reaching into the young girl's clothes and groping her. The sound of panting, tender moaning, and playful banter filled the air. Yang Kai couldn't bear it and his face became a little red. The young girl's eyes narrowed as she stood on tiptoe and whispered into Yang Kai's ear, "Young lord, do you want to drink wine and be merry here, or do you want to book a room to spend time with this servant? Everything is up to you. It's too noisy here. Then come with me, young lord." The young girl chuckled, pulling Yang Kai's hand and leading him to the stairs. Going up to the third floor, they found an empty room and the young girl pulled Yang Kai inside. "Young lord, please sit down first, this servant will arrange some food," the young girl said gently. "Wait a moment." Yang Kai called out to her. The young girl giggled and covered her mouth. "Young lord, are you impatient to wait?" Yang Kai blushed and shook his head. "Actually, I like older women." The young girl was surprised, but she wasn't angry. Everyone has their own preferences. She had seen at least 80 men, if not 100, and many of them had their own special interests. "Then this servant will call an older sister in?" The young girl gently asked for Yang Kai's opinion. "No need to trouble yourself, call your procuress in." Yang Kai lightly coughed. The young girl was a little dumbfounded. None of the guests who came here to seek pleasure had ever made such a request. Although the procuress in the brothel was a girl who accompanied the guests when she was young, with the passing of her youth, very few people cared about her. It was precisely because there were no guests that she became a procuress. The young girl hesitated. "Young lord, are you sure you want to call mother in?" "Call her." Yang Kai casually threw out an ingot of silver. The young girl nodded. "Young lord, please wait a moment, I don't know if mother is willing, I will go and ask first." "This young lord looks young, why does he like old women?" The 1,000 Gold Wine Brothel's mother was in her 40s. That age was more than enough to be this young lord's real mother. Wasn't his taste a bit too heavy? But the guest had the freedom to choose what kind of woman he wanted, so the young girl naturally wouldn't blame the 1,000 Gold Wine Brothel for opening its doors for business, as long as there was money to be made. Yang Kai quietly waited in the room for a moment before the door was opened. He coldly looked and saw a somewhat obese woman with heavy makeup walk in. When she was young, she was quite beautiful, but at this age, with the weight of her body, the charm of youth had disappeared, leaving only a body of fat. Just now, when the young girl reported that there was a young lord who wanted her to accompany him in drinking, the procuress was very happy and quickly rushed over. When she came in and saw that it was really a handsome young lord, the procuress liked him even more, thinking that she still had some charm. Walking forward, the procuress smiled beautifully and politely greeted, "This young lord." Before she finished speaking, Yang Kai reached out and grabbed her, pushing her to sit in a chair. Shwa! A sharp dagger was inserted in front of the procuress. The procuress's face suddenly became pale, staring at the dagger, her whole body trembling. "This young lord, what do you want to do?" The procuress was also a shrewd person. Now, she didn't know that Yang Kai didn't come here to seek pleasure, but to cause trouble. "I want to ask you something." Yang Kai pulled a chair and sat in front of her, speaking in a low voice. "Young lord, please ask if this servant knows, I will not dare to conceal anything." The procuress was frightened. "About 3 or 4 months ago, didn't you buy a 30-year-old beautiful woman?" Yang Kai narrowed his eyes and looked at the procuress. The procuress forced a smile. "Young lord's question is not clear, how can this servant remember? There are often some women who are sold in the brothel." "The Miao family sold her." The procuress's face slightly changed. Seeing her expression, Kai Yang continued. "She even scratched her own face, swearing that she wouldn't accept any guests. Then she was sold to the Red Cloud sect." "So, do you remember?" The procuress shook her head. "There is no such person as the young lord said." Yang Kai swung his hand and slapped her. A crisp sound came out, and the procuress's face had a palm print. "There really is no such person." Another slap. "Young lord, slap. This servant did not lie to you." Slap. "This servant remembers." The old brothel keeper hurriedly cried out. Several heavy and powerful slaps fell down, causing her to see stars and several of her teeth to fly out. If she continued to be stubborn, she might be beaten to death. This young man in front of her was clearly a bloodthirsty martial artist, so how could an ordinary person like her possibly resist? There was such a woman, but her body was not sullied, and her face was scratched by herself. It has nothing to do with us. I know. Yang Kai nodded slightly, then asked, then, who hit her? Forced her to receive guests? Yes. The procuress looked terrified. She never thought that the beautiful woman would have such a background. Who? Yang Kai pulled out the dagger in front of her and casually picked at her nails. It was this servant who hit her. Young lord, please spare me, I just lightly whipped her a few times, that's all. All the girls who were sold to the Red Cloud sect, if they were not willing to receive guests, they would be trained like this. This servant did not know that she was one of your people. If this servant knew, even if you beat this servant to death, this servant would not dare to treat her like that. The procuress said while she knelt down and kowtowed. Yang Kai took a deep breath and put the dagger on the procuress's neck with an indifferent expression. No, don't kill me. The procuress screamed. This servant has already told you everything, please spare my life. As soon as her voice fell, the dagger in Yang Kai's hand moved in a circle, splashing blood. The procuress's eyes gradually dimmed, and her body softly fell to the ground. Wiping the blood on the dagger, Yang Kai got up and left the room, striding outside. The girl who led Yang Kai in just now saw him running out again and couldn't help but smile. Young lord, did you have fun? Yang Kai ignored her, and his attitude stunned the girl. She quickly ran to the room on the third floor and pushed the door open, only to see the floor covered in blood and the procuress lying on the ground in a deep sleep. Screams rang out, and the entire 1,000 Gold Wine Club suddenly became chaotic. Sea City, Miao family, brightly lit. The Miao family had not been in High City for very long, but Miao Huaqing was still a man with some means and ability. He was able to make friends from both sides, marry a girl from the Shang dynasty, and have children with her. He was able to take root in this place, and had developed quite a bit over the years. Although the family was not big, they could still earn 200,000 to 300,000 taels of silver every year. Miao Huaqing did not have to worry about food and clothing, and lived a comfortable life. Chapter 200. Especially in the past few months, Miao Huaqing felt that he had gained a lot of good luck. First, the Jiang family's widow brought a lot of valuable things to him, which doubled the Miao family's wealth overnight. Later, he contributed the mysterious turtle shell to the Red Cloud sect. The Red Cloud sect elder personally promised to train his son Miao Lin well in the future, and also gave him some cultivation pills. His son being valued, Miao Huaqing felt sincerely gratified and happy. Even exploring the hidden island was such an important matter. The Red Cloud sect had brought his son along, which showed the Red Cloud sect's sincerity. Miao Lin had told him that in the future, he must take the girl named Yu Aoqing as his wife. Once his son succeeded, Miao Huaqing felt that his own status would also rise. He had inquired clearly that Yu Aoqing was the only daughter of one of the Red Cloud sect elders. If his son really got his hands on her, the Miao family's future would be bright. The only thing that made him feel a little regretful was that the Jiang family's lady resisted too strongly that day, and he did not succeed. Thinking of the lady's plump white body, dignified and gorgeous appearance, Miao Huaqing was a little annoyed. If he had not been so angry at the time, he would not have sold her to the 1,000 Gold Wine Pavilion. He would have kept her and trained her until she became docile and obedient, becoming his plaything. Women, once they were in bed, he could play with them however he wanted. As long as she was comfortable, he could guarantee that she would forget her duties. Later, when Miao Huaqing went to the 1,000 Gold Wine Pavilion to seek pleasure, he heard from the brothel keeper that the lady had scratched her face. She was staunch and loyal and could no longer receive guests, so he was forced to sell her to the Red Cloud sect. Humph, falling into the hands of the Red Cloud sect, what good fruit would there be to eat? Miao Huaqing sneered, not knowing how to appreciate kindness. This was the end. Sipping a mouthful of wine, Miao Huaqing laughed, hugging a beautiful maid in each hand. For a moment, he was somewhat proud of himself. 2 beautiful maids, one on the left and one on the right. They were both girls that he had spent money to redeem from the 1,000 Gold Wine Pavilion, beautiful and moving. Miao Huaqing had spent the past few days in bed with them. At this moment, the 3 of them sat on the bed. There was a small table on the bed with a few exquisite dishes on it. Miao Huaqing was more or less wearing pajamas, while the two beautiful maids were practically naked, only wearing underwear. 80% of their beautiful delicate bodies were exposed. Slim waists, slender legs, full breasts and perky buttocks, nothing could be imagined. Drink and be merry. From time to time, Miao Huaqing would touch the body of the girl beside him a few times. His eyes gradually blurred, and his interest gradually rose. Take the table away. Master will teach you two a new trick. Miao Huaqing waved his hand and said drunkenly. Two beautiful maids stood up with smiles on their faces and removed the table and dishes. He come here. Miao Huaqing waved at them with a lewd smile. When they reached the bedside, he suddenly pulled them into his arms. In 2 to 3 seconds, the two girls' undergarments were stripped off. Miao Huaqing placed them side by side on the bed. Taking off his own clothes, a vicious dog pounced on one of the delicate bodies. Just as he was about to take action, a mournful and short scream suddenly came from outside the door. This scream made Miao Huaqing's heart tremble. Almost in an instant he jumped up, only to hear an angry shout from outside. Whose kid is this? How dare you come to the Miao family and behave atrociously? As soon as the voice fell, there was another puff sound. The guards around all moved together, roaring again and again. Obviously, they had already started fighting. Miao Huaqing did not rush out, but listened carefully. A moment later, his expression changed. He found that the strength of the person who came was very strong. The guards he recruited were actually killed one by one. Yang Kai, dressed in black, came from the Miao family's gate, holding a steel knife in his hand. When the knife flashed, someone would die. The cultivator of this small family was not comparable to the disciples of the sect forces. Many of the recruited guards were people who did not have much future in martial arts. They gave up on continuing to cultivate and then surrendered to these families to earn a living. The Miao family was not a big family, so how strong could those who were recruited by the Miao family be? Yang Kai had investigated everything about the Miao family a few days ago. The strongest person in the Miao family was Miao Huaqing, who was only at the peak of the separation and reunion boundary. The other guards also had a few separation and reunion boundary cultivators, but most of them were Qi transformation stage cultivators. These people's talents were mediocre. They had cultivated for 20 to 30 years or more, but had only reached this realm. They were all recruited by Miao Huaqing to act as guards, helping the tiger do evil. When Yang Kai broke in, he was discovered by these guards, and after 10 breaths of time, several of them died. His strength had already reached the Qi transformation 9th stage, which was much higher than most of the Miao family's guards. Not to mention, Yang Kai had come in anger, his Yuan Qi surging violently, giving off a menacing aura, making him look like an evil demon. In the darkness of the night, a pair of scarlet eyes flashed with a ferocious light. This baleful aura caused the Miao family's guards to tremble in fear. To deal with the Red Cloud sect, Yang Kai had no choice but to rely on ancient Cloud Island. But to deal with the Miao family, Yang Kai had to do it himself. Grievances could only be truly resolved with his own hands. Little brat, who the hell are you? With such strength at such a young age, which island are you from? One of the Miao family's separation and reunion boundary guards frowned and asked. To reach the peak of the Qi transformation stage at such a young age, besides the disciples from the Outer Sea Islands, none of the families in Sea City could cultivate such a person. Therefore, this guard was really afraid. None of the Outer Sea Islands forces were something the Miao family could provoke. If he killed this young man, it would cause unnecessary trouble. Although he had taken Miao Huaqing's money and was working for the Miao family, he didn't want to get into trouble. But this boy was very strange. Since entering, he had not said a single word, only killing people, which really made him angry. Even if you came to the Miao family to kill, you should at least have a reason, right? Young man, where did you learn from? Can you tell me about it? The man asked again for the sake of caution. Yang Kai's expression was indifferent. In his hand was a steel blade dripping with blood. Step by step, he walked inside. Yang Kai's attitude completely enraged the Miao family's guards. The guard who spoke before roared, "Kill him for me! What if he is a disciple from one of the outer sea islands?" Someone was uneasy. This boy's body is full of evil qi and he doesn't even care about it. He must be a mad demon. How could there be such an evil cultivator on those islands? These words made sense. Yang Kai had not said anything since he came in, nor did he answer their questions. He had only walked and killed. If he wasn't a mad demon, then what was he? Slaying evil and eliminating evil was everyone's responsibility. Thinking of this, the Miao family's guards no longer hesitated. Under the leadership of several separation and reunion boundary experts, they all rushed forward. Yang Kai waved his hand, and a black qi flew out. The steel blade in his hand flashed. He faced a qi transformation realm guard and chopped down. His opponent tried to parry with his long sword, but when the two blades came into contact, the long sword was directly broken. The hot true Yang Yuan qi circulated around the steel blade, and not only did it break his sword, but it also split his body in two. Blood fell like rain, and internal organs were everywhere. The two separation and reunion boundary experts attacked from the side, but before they could get close to Yang Kai, a strange laughter suddenly sounded in their ears. This kind of soul-stealing sound made their hair stand on end. They thought that there was some kind of expert hiding nearby. With this hesitation, they did not have the courage to attack Yang Kai. The old demon had already arrived in front of them with the Soul Breaker All. In the dark night, the old demon attacked from the shadows. Feeling the danger, the two separation and reunion boundary experts quickly blocked. Ding ding dang 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 sounds rang out. The old demon's attack was not successful, so it immediately fled. The Soul Breaker All instantly arrived in front of a Qi Transformation Realm Level 5 guard. The Soul Breaker All poured into his chest and came out of his back, taking away his soul. On the Red Cloud Island, the old demon had swallowed a lot of evil Qi. On the Hidden Island, he had also swallowed the divine sense of that godly thief. At this moment, the old demon's fighting strength was much higher than before. It was no longer the same as before. Killing a Qi transformation stage martial artist with a single strike was simply too easy. Not to mention, he was wrapped in the Soul Breaker All, using his soul to drive this artifact, making it even more difficult to guard against. When the old demon showed its power, Yang Kai killed two Qi Transformation Realm guards. When the other Qi Transformation Realm cultivators saw Yang Kai's ferocity, how could they dare to come forward? Only the three separation and reunion boundary experts were in a dilemma. They were vigilant against Yang Kai and also against the old demon. Their palms were full of sweat. The three of them exchanged glances with each other. Their hearts hardened, and they angrily shouted, "Boy, die!" The three of them attacked at the same time. Yang Kai raised his steel saber to parry, while the old demon supported from the side. 2 against 3, they were not afraid at all. With a crack, the steel saber shattered. The separation and reunion boundary cultivator who was fighting Yang Kai staggered back a few steps. Before he could stand firm, Yang Kai had already flashed in front of him and fiercely punched him in the chest. 3 muffled sounds were heard. The man felt something sweet in his throat and spat out a mouthful of blood. 1 blow was enough to seriously injure him. The power of the burning sun's 3-layer explosion could be seen clearly. Without waiting for the other 2 to save him, Yang Kai had already retreated. The old demon immediately attacked. Taking advantage of the Yuan Qi in his body being disrupted, the Soul Breaker All pierced the man's throat and stayed in his body for a moment before flying out again. "Ha! I finally ate a decent spirit." The old demon's loud laughter was heard, accompanied by the sound of chewing. The remaining 2 separation and reunion boundary cultivators were aghast. Before they could recover, their vision blurred. Yang Kai, who was more than 10 feet away, had unexpectedly returned to them. His 2 palms were completely red, like soldering iron, and slammed toward their chests. The 2 of them let out a strange cry and fiercely urged their Yuan Qi to meet the attack with their palms. 2 sounds were heard. Yang Kai's face paled, and he quickly retreated. The other 2 people did not have it easy either. They only felt a burning pain on their palms, and a tyrannical, fierce, and scalding yuan qi drilled into their bodies. They did not dare to be negligent and hastily resisted. After neutralizing one wave, there was another. 3 waves of yuan qi, like 3 waves, rushed into their meridians, causing their arms to explode into a bloody mist. Screams were heard. Yang Kai had already returned. His self-created footwork allowed him to appear and disappear like a ghost. He flashed behind the 2 people and fiercely punched. Peng, ping, ping. The 2 people's bodies were like rags. Caught off guard, they took a few punches before they could hurriedly dodge. However, the true yang yuan qi that had invaded their bodies remained. The 2 people's faces were flushed red. They used all their strength to neutralize the scalding yuan qi. The old demon once again pounced on them. Taking advantage of their unpreparedness, he suddenly attacked and nimbly took their lives. Chapter 201. My God, run! The only 3 separation and reunion boundary guards of the Miao family had been killed in less than 30 breaths of time, so how could the surviving Qi transformation stage cultivator dare to stay? With a strange cry, they all rushed out. Jie jie jie. Don't even think about running away, all of you will stay for this old man. The old demon laughed crazily, the soul breaker all shuttled back and forth, each time taking a life. More than a dozen Qi transformation stage guards were all lying on the ground. The ground was littered with corpses, and the smell of blood filled the air. Yang Kai's yuan qi was rolling more violently, and his whole body was covered with evil qi. With his dark clothes, he really looked like an evil demon. Pang! The front door opened, and Miao Huacheng hurriedly rushed out, but when he saw the scene in the courtyard, his expression could not help but change. When Yang Kai had rushed into the Miao family's house and caused a ruckus, he had already heard it. He wanted to have sex with the 2 beautiful maids, so he had just taken off his clothes. Even though he knew that there was a great battle outside, he still had to put on his clothes first. Otherwise, how could he run out naked? The screams of the guards made Miao Huacheng panic, so much so that he even buttoned 2 buttons wrong. He hurriedly put on his clothes and rushed out, only to see that none of his guards were left. They were all lying on the ground. In front of him, a black-clothed man whose face could not be seen was walking towards him step by step. His yuan qi was berserk beyond recognition. Although it was fierce, it was only at the peak of the qi transformation stage. This discovery made Miao Huacheng's panicked mood relax. Who are you? Miao Huacheng angrily shouted, staring at Yang Kai with vigilance. The other side did not answer, but his footsteps gradually quickened. Courting death. Miao Huacheng's heart was filled with anger, and he also walked towards Yang Kai. The distance between the 2 quickly closed. When they were only 3 feet apart, Miao Huacheng suddenly pointed at Yang Kai, and a sharp wind suddenly shot out, making a whimpering sound. Yang Kai instinctively moved to the side, and the wind brushed past his shoulder, leaving behind a trail of blood. Miao Huacheng was surprised. He did not expect that at such a close distance, the other side could actually dodge his finger, but he did not panic and sneered. He flicked his finger again. Although this move was not a high-level martial skill, it was fast, and the consumption of yuan qi, it was hard to defend. As soon as Yang Kai's finger shot out, Miao Huacheng suddenly lost sight of him. The next moment, Miao Huacheng felt a hot sensation behind him. Insignificant skill. Although he was shocked, Miao Huacheng, he was still a cultivator at the peak of separation and reunion stage, and had some skills. Miao Huacheng. Miao mi miao yang, Miao Huacheng miao. Turning around, Miao Huacheng jumped into the air, both palms pushed out, and his yuan qi was pushed to the limit. He shouted, "Wild wind kill." A faint whistling sound could be heard as Miao Huacheng's 2 palms danced in the air, leaving behind a series of afterimages as he sent out a series of invisible wind blades towards Yang Kai without pause. Although these attacks could not be seen with the naked eye, Yang Kai's senses were sharp, and he could still judge the trajectory of these wind blades. His body flashed, and he hurriedly dodged. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The wind blades came one after another, brushing past Yang Kai's clothes and hitting the ground, cutting many cracks in the ground. However, Yang Kai was still unscathed, only some pieces of his clothes fluttered in the air. Miao Huacheng's face became cold, his speed suddenly increased, and he shouted, "Let's see how you dodge." More than a dozen wind blades attacked at the same time, blocking Yang Kai's dodging space. Yang Kai's face darkened, and he did not waste any more time. His yuan qi burned, and his whole body became as dazzling as the sun, his arms crossed in front of him to protect his vital parts. A series of muffled sounds came out, and the wind blades attacked, cutting Yang Kai's body, arms, and thighs, leaving wounds. Blood flowed out, and it was a shocking sight. However, Miao Huacheng was taken aback. Although his attack had injured his opponent, it hadn't taken his life. It could even be said that those injuries were only minor injuries, flesh wounds. Even his bones and tendons hadn't been injured. How strong and pure was his yuan qi to be able to resist his separation and reunion peak martial skill? Seeing that Yang Kai was at a disadvantage, the old demon was furious. He laughed strangely and was about to rush over to help, but Yang Kai called him in his mind. He wanted to deal with this battle by himself. Not only did he want to test how much his strength had grown, but he also wanted to use this battle to break through his shackles. With the help of the old demon, it would not be difficult to take Miao Huacheng's life, but it was not in line with his plan. Perceiving Yang Kai's determination, the old demon secretly warned him to be careful, and did not act presumptuously again. He just covered himself with the Soul Breaker All and hid on the side. It was not until now that Miao Huacheng finally saw Yang Kai's face. It was the face of a boy about 15 or 16 years old, determined, cold, crazy, bloodthirsty, and calm. All kinds of emotions gathered in his expression, perfectly blended together, but also conflicting and contradictory, giving people a very strange feeling. Miao Huacheng frowned and said, "Boy, have we met somewhere before?" He always felt that this face was vaguely familiar, but he could not remember where he had seen it. A few months ago, when Yang Kai saw him, he was still a little beggar with a dirty face. How could Miao Huacheng connect the evil and awe-inspiring Yang Kai with the little beggar of that day? He did not hear an answer, as if the other side was mute. "Arrogant boy, you dare to come to my Miao family and act presumptuously, you are courting death." Miao Huacheng no longer talked, and rushed in front of Yang Kai, striking out with his palm. Yang Kai also used his footwork to contend with him, his two hands sometimes forming palms, sometimes forming fists, fighting endlessly with Miao Huacheng. After all, the difference in strength was too great, and Yang Kai soon fell into a disadvantage, only able to passively defend. On the contrary, Miao Huacheng became braver and braver, taking the limelight, and his mouth was full of sarcasm. But Yang Kai was not in a hurry. Although fighting with a separation and reunion boundary peak master was very dangerous, and the slightest carelessness could lead to serious injuries or even death, but Yang Kai still insisted on not using the unyielding will. He needed this moment of life and death to comprehend his own martial arts, so as to break through the shackles of his body. This was not a friendly exchange of pointers, but a real fight to the death. Yang Kai's actions could be described as walking on a tightrope. The old demon was scared witless, and his soul was about to leave his body. More and more injuries appeared on his body, and the yuan qi in his body became more and more violent. The warmth in his bones also became stronger and stronger, as if the energy in the unyielding golden skeleton could no longer be suppressed, and was about to burst out. Yang Kai suppressed it, and only fought with Miao Huacheng with the strength of the qi transformation boundary. Miao Huacheng was not young, and had practiced many martial arts in his life. He repeatedly changed his attacks, but was still unable to kill Yang Kai. Although he was beaten until he was full of scars, his opponent seemed like he could not be killed, and did not even leave a decent injury. As time passed, Miao Huacheng faintly felt that something was not right. This mad demon youth's violent yuan qi actually showed signs of being restrained, and his moves were no longer as methodical as before, but they were more difficult to deal with. His moves were straightforward, and there was no pattern to them. Yang Kai's mouth slowly curved into a smile. He faintly felt that he had touched the layer of shackles that had been placed on his body. He immediately paid more attention to it, and experienced it in this life and death battle. His moves gradually became wild and free, as if he would no longer be restrained by anything. Even his self-created footwork was now much smoother than before. Combined with his straightforward moves, Yang Kai gradually turned from defense to offense. After fighting for a while, Yang Kai's comprehension deepened. He felt the Yuan Qi surge in his body, and the power that poured into his fists and feet. He felt the traces of his moves and the opponent's response. Yang Kai was deep in thought. Mirror Moon Kill. Miao Huacheng suddenly roared, and finally used his strongest move. When the Yuan Qi exploded, dozens of Miao Huacheng's figures appeared in all directions, as if they were clones. These Miao Huachengs all raised their fists, smashing towards Yang Kai with a sinister smile. This was his trump card. Once the dozens of Mirror Moon phantoms appeared, there were illusions in the real, and there were truths in the fake. Even a cultivator of the same level would find it difficult to distinguish. Today, in order to deal with a youth at the peak of the Qi transformation stage, Miao Huacheng's helplessness and anger could be seen. But it should be over. Once the Mirror Moon Kill is used, this kid will definitely die. Miao Huacheng was very confident in himself. Yang Kai's expression was as calm as an ancient well. He quietly looked at the enemy figures around him, and his somewhat confused eyes suddenly became clear. Stay true to your heart. The Tao separates and reunites. So what if it's righteous? So what if it's evil? Stay true to your heart and act according to your nature. That's your martial path. The Berserk Yuan Qi, which was originally about to be restrained, suddenly burst forth with ferocious and surging waves. This time, it was several times more violent than before. It was like the might of an avalanche, the might of a mountain collapsing. Even someone as strong as Miao Huacheng's expression abruptly changed when he felt this demonic qi. Did he really become the demon race? Moreover, he had broken through to the separation and reunion boundary right in front of him. Yang Kai activated Unyielding Will the moment he broke through. His strength, which had just broken through to the separation and reunion boundary, rapidly rose to the peak of the separation and reunion boundary. He was at the same level as Miao Huacheng. He calmly punched out, his true Yang Yuan Qi ferociously bursting forth. The silhouettes of the dozen or so seedlings around him shattered like broken mirrors. With a muffled groan, Miao Huacheng spat out a mouthful of blood and was sent flying. In a confrontation of the same level, Miao Huacheng was not a match for Yang Kai's punch. Struggling to get up, Miao Huacheng looked at Yang Kai in horror. He saw this crazy youth's indifferent and calm face, but his eyes were brimming with a crazy, bloodthirsty and cruel light. In a flash, he appeared in front of him. Who are you? Miao Huacheng, what enmity do you have with me? Miao Huacheng was scared. He knew that he could not beat this youth, and now he only wanted to know why he was looking for him. But he did not get an answer. Miao Huacheng was extremely sullen. He shouted, "Don't kill me, my son Miao Lin is a disciple of the Red Cloud sect. The elders of the Red Cloud sect value him very much. If you kill me, you will also be in trouble." Chapter 202. Miao Huacheng had no choice but to bring up the Red Cloud sect. He hoped that Yang Kai would be wary of him and stop, so that he could keep his life. However, the other party obviously didn't put the Red Cloud sect in his eyes. In an instant he arrived in front of him. He seemed to be very calm as he patted his chest. Then he lightly retreated. His eyes were cold and ruthless. Miao Huacheng's heart seemed to be gripped by a hot hand. It violently contracted and then fiercely expanded. With a cry, Miao Huacheng vomited blood. His skin turned red as if he had been scalded by boiling water. Although he did not die, he was seriously injured. The old demon took advantage of Miao Huacheng's unpreparedness to kill him. The Soul Breaker all rushed into Miao Huacheng's body and gave him a fatal blow. Who was this person? Why did he come to the Miao family and start a massacre? Before Miao Huacheng died, he was still thinking about how he had provoked this young man, but he still could not figure it out. It had to be said that being killed in such a confused manner, Miao Huacheng could not die in peace. In the sky above Sea City, a huge amount of heaven and earth energy crazily gathered around Yang Kai. After breaking through a large realm, he could once again receive heaven and earth energy. Yang Kai used his movement skill and quickly left the Miao family. Soon, he appeared on the shore of the sea. That night, the wind whistled and the waves surged. Countless cultivators in Sea City looked at the shore in horror. They knew that it was a person who had just broken through and caused a heaven and earth vision. However, such a terrifying heaven and earth vision made them not dare to approach. They could only look from afar with admiration and envy. This person was definitely an expert. It was very likely that he had broken through to the immortal ascension boundary from the Yuan Qi boundary. Otherwise, how could there be such a big movement? The overall strength of the cultivator in Sea City was not high. Naturally, they did not dare to touch the whiskers of an immortal ascension boundary expert. However, no one would have thought that such a heaven and earth vision was just a 15-year-old boy breaking through to the separation and reunion boundary. If they were to know that, they would be so shocked that their jaws would drop. The crazy movement lasted for most of the night before it gradually stopped. After the storm passed, some people vaguely saw a ball of fire fly out from the shore and into the depths of the sea. Through the fire, a pair of wing-like things could be faintly seen. However, even if someone saw it, they wouldn't dare to believe their eyes. They just thought that they were hallucinating. Dawn Cloud's Island. Yang Kai came to the right peninsula and stood on the mountain peak where he had parted with Madame Jiang, looking up. The whole of Xianxia is now in a gloomy state. Even on the right peninsula, one could almost smell the smell of blood flowing in the air. As far as the eye could see, the ground was littered with corpses. There were traces of a great battle and pools of dark red blood that had not yet dried up. Houses had collapsed, and walls were in ruins. Birds flew across the sky, and the earth groaned. The entire Red Cloud sect had been slaughtered. There was a skeleton in front of Yang Kai. The skeleton was wearing a tattered green and white dress. It was the one that Madame Jiang wore that day. Withered bones sat quietly on the mountain peak like an immortal reef. Yang Kai could almost clearly see that after he parted with Madame Jiang that day, she had been sitting there without moving. She just looked in the direction of High City's Miao family. A breeze blew, blowing Madame Jiang's hair. Her eyes were gloomy, like the sky covered by dark clouds. There was no light, no hope. She just looked at it, and didn't close her eyes until the end of her life. Until last night, she saw the destruction of the Miao family, saw Miao Huaqing die at the hands of Yang Kai. Heaven's law was good, but who did the heavens spare? Resentment was over. Evil people will eventually be punished. Yang Kai took out a pot of wine and worshipped in front of Madame Jiang. He reached out his hand, wanting to bury her skeleton. However, when his hand touched the skeleton, she suddenly collapsed and fell to the ground, turning into a pile of powder. A gust of wind blew on the ground. The wind blew the powder over the right peninsula of Xianxia and scattered on the sea, disappearing without a trace. Yang Kai's eyes narrowed. There was some sadness and desolation on his face. That day, he really wanted to take Madame Jiang away. However, he didn't want to. Her heart was already dead. She would only be tortured and miserable for the rest of her life. Following her late husband and her late daughter was the best place for her to return to. Yang Kai followed her wishes. Now that he thought about it, he didn't know if what he did was right. Feeling the desolation in Yang Kai's heart, the old demon held back for a long time before comforting him. "Young master, you are not Madame Jiang. How do you know that death is not a relief for her?" Yang Kai didn't make a sound. After a long time, he turned around, spread the wings of yang inflammation, and flew towards the sea. Perhaps it was a relief for her, but for him, there was a trace of regret. In the next 2 days, Yang Kai took out a lot of strange flowers and herbs collected from the hidden island. He exchanged them with people in High City for yang attribute things, refining them into yang liquid and storing them in dantian. 2 days later, at night, Yang Kai carried 2 big bags and flew north. Shortly after Yang Kai left High City, all the major islands and great forces in the Endless Sea Islands received a piece of shocking and exciting news. Supreme Solitary Sect. What? Ancient Cloud Island found the broken moon transformation art? Is this news true? Azura sect. What? Ancient Cloud Island found the broken moon transformation art? Is there any news about my sect hallowed treasure, the Azura sword? Falling Flowers sect. The broken moon transformation art has been found? What about the 1,000-blossoming blood begonia? This is the foundation of my sect. It was lost along with the broken moon transformation art. Scarlet Lotus sect. Go to Ancient Cloud Island and inquire about the whereabouts of our sect master's token. Cloud Dragon Island. After more than a dozen great forces heard that Ancient Cloud Island's supreme secret art had been found, they couldn't remain calm. Everyone's things were lost at the same time. There was no reason that Ancient Cloud Island could find it, but there was no news about them. In an instant, all the masters of the major islands began to move. In just one day, Ancient Cloud Island was overcrowded with masters from the Endless Sea Islands. Gu Feng and the elders of Ancient Cloud Island were all exhausted from entertaining them. After explaining in detail about the broken moon transformation art, these dozen great forces hurriedly rushed to Red Cloud sect. The pitiful Red Cloud Island was only a third-rate force. Just because of a manual of the broken moon transformation art, their entire sect was exterminated. But after that, more than a dozen forces plowed through Red Cloud Island again and again, trying to find what their sect had lost 300 years ago. But those things had already been taken away by Yang Kai, so how could they find them? If they couldn't find them, they would naturally become angry. If they were angry, they would attack people. If there was no one to attack, they would attack the island. In less than 3 days, the entire Red Cloud Island disappeared from the world's view, completely destroyed. Yang Kai naturally didn't know that Red Cloud sect would suffer such misfortune after he left. At this moment, he was very close to High Heaven Pavilion. He had accumulated a lot of yang liquid in Sea City, allowing him to quickly fly back to the sect. Deliberately choosing a night, when he was only 50 kilometers away from High Heaven Pavilion, Yang Kai landed and used his movement skill to continue forward. An hour later, looking at the High Heaven Pavilion that he had been away from for nearly half a year, Yang Kai smiled. His somewhat depressed mood because of the matter with the Jiang family's widow had finally improved. He didn't have a sense of belonging to the sect, but he knew that here, there was a woman who could accompany him for the rest of his life waiting for him. Carrying 2 big bags, Yang Kai sneaked into the sect, but just as he set foot inside, he frowned. "Young master," the old demon quietly called out. "I don't care." Yang Kai's eyes narrowed. He clearly felt that several divine senses had swept over him. If it was before, Yang Kai wouldn't have been able to feel this. After all, those who could use their divine sense to investigate him were at least at the immortal ascension boundary, several realms higher than him. But since he had obtained the 5-colored soul-warming lotus, Yang Kai's perception had become extremely sharp, so when these divine senses swept over him, he was already aware of them. These divine senses were very unfamiliar, definitely not from the elders of High Heaven Pavilion. Fortunately, these divine senses were only probing and didn't have any malicious intent. After sweeping over, they no longer paid attention to Yang Kai. But this discovery made his heart skip a beat. Why did High Heaven Pavilion suddenly have so many masters? Faintly guessing in his heart, Yang Kai couldn't help but sigh. It seems that the sect is not peaceful right now. Almost at the same moment Yang Kai returned to High Heaven Pavilion. In a small pavilion, Su Yen, who was in seclusion, suddenly opened her eyes. "He's back," Su Yen whispered softly, gently pursing her red lips, her face involuntarily blushing. It was as if there was a voice calling out to her, urging her to approach the direction of that person. This kind of calling out to her made Su Yen somewhat flustered, making it impossible for her to continue meditating. "It's really Nemesis." During the time he wasn't here, although there were times when it was difficult for her to endure, using her ice heart secret art to help her calm down, and with this kind of test and resistance, her state of mind had also rapidly improved. But when she heard that he had returned, her ice heart secret art seemed to have completely lost its effect, and she couldn't even calm down. After thinking about it for a moment, Su Yen didn't insist, instead standing up and opening the door, wrapping herself in a cold and otherworldly aura. Her body transformed into a white and flawless blur as she quickly approached the coiling dragon stream. Beside the coiling dragon stream, Yang Kai glanced back, a faint smile appearing on his face. "Old demon, go play by yourself." Yang Kai casually tossed the old demon and the soul breaker all away. "Ah, cough cough." The old demon was speechless for a while, thinking to himself, "This old master isn't a 3-year-old child. How could young master dismiss me like this?" However, the demonic chi of the coiling dragon stream was very attractive to the old demon, so he didn't hesitate and directly rushed down. Standing at the edge of the coiling dragon stream, Yang Kai waited for a moment before a white figure quickly approached and stopped about 10 meters away from him. Their 4 eyes met, both filled with tenderness. Yang Kai's eyes were filled with longing, while Su Yan's eyes were filled with gentleness. Quietly looking at each other, they observed the changes in each other over the past few months. He had become a lot stronger and more robust, but there was a trace of unconcealable vicissitudes and sadness in his eyes. This kind of weather-beaten vicissitudes shouldn't appear in a person of his age, but it gave him a sense of maturity. Looking at this faint trace of vicissitudes, Su Yan's heart faintly ached. She knew that in these past few months, Yang Kai must have encountered a lot of things. Chapter 203. She was like a celestial pearl, her temperament becoming more and more otherworldly, pure and flawless. Anyone who stood in front of her could not help but feel humble and ashamed of their inferiority. Pure as ice and pure as jade, her face was peerless, her skin as white as snow, so delicate that it could be broken by the slightest touch. Like a fairy that had descended to the mortal world, she exuded a sense of holiness and inviolable nobility. Although he had once possessed her and even acted presumptuously on her body, meeting her this time, Yang Kai still felt a sense of unreality. Su Yan's nobility and purity obviously did not have the slightest effect on Yang Kai. Suppressing and resisting for so long in his heart, Yang Kai took 2 steps forward and unceremoniously wrapped his arms around Su Yan's waist, lowering his head to kiss her. Su Yan hurriedly raised her hand to block him, her voice as soft as a mosquito's, "Go down." As soon as her voice fell, Yang Kai leapt down towards the coiling dragon stream decisively. After falling 1,000 meters, Yang Kai's wings unfurled and he flew into the cave mansion he had created. Su Yan's beautiful eyes flashed brilliantly as she stared at the wings on Yang Kai's back with some surprise. Entering the secluded cave, Yang Kai folded his wings and threw the 2 large bags he was carrying onto the ground. Then he picked up Su Yan and carried her up, a meaningful smile on his face as he walked step by step towards the stone bed. Su Yan's heart felt like it was stuffed with a deer, her heart thumping wildly. Although she had experienced this kind of thing twice, thinking about it now still made her feel a little shy, and she couldn't help burying her head in Yang Kai's arms. Arriving at the stone bed, he slowly put her down. Su Yan boldly raised her head and looked towards Yang Kai. Her cheeks were flushed red. Between kisses, their breathing gradually became heavy, one body burning hot like fire, the other piercing cold like ice, both of them endlessly longing for the other. With a soft sound, Yang Kai suppressed his crazy desires and gently unbuttoned Su Yan's clothes, slowly revealing her porcelain-like delicate breasts. Her clothes fluttering in the wind, her hair disheveled, Yang Kai flipped over and pressed her down. Rain and clouds overturned. Su Yan was gasping for breath, and her whole body was as weak as mud. On the contrary, Yang Kai was becoming more and more courageous as the battle progressed. He was like a knight charging forward with his spear. With endless stamina and full of spirit, they madly collided with each other without rest. Even though Su Yan was circulating her ice heart's secret art, she couldn't suppress the shyness in her heart. Her whole body was covered in a layer of red light, and her hair was disheveled and dripping with sweat. Is this okay? Su Yan gritted her teeth and endured the shyness in her heart. She complied with Yang Kai's wishes and was placed in a position that made her feel somewhat ashamed. Very good. Yang Kai nodded fiercely, his appetite piqued. The night he returned to High Heaven Pavilion. Yang Kai and Su Yan fooled around all night. Recalling the carvings and murals he saw in Sea City's 1,000 Gold Wine Pavilion, Yang Kai put them into action. He put them into practice and explored them. He enjoyed it so much that he forgot to return. His mood was getting higher and higher. Su Yan simply didn't know that the matters between men and women could have so many variations, so many variations. It was like a mysterious martial skill, with infinite variations, each variation giving people a different kind of feeling and pleasure. It was just that these variations were too embarrassing. Su Yan faintly couldn't bear it. After countless variations, Yang Kai found that his favorite position was one that he had accidentally explored in Heaven's Cave Inheritance. He turned Su Yan's back to him, because in the middle of it, the lifelike ice phoenix pattern on Su Yan's back was constantly flowing, flying on her delicate white skin. Looking at this ice phoenix pattern, looking at her smooth back and slender waist that was as smooth as silk, Yang Kai always felt an inexplicable excitement and impulse. He knew that since Su Yan had this ice phoenix pattern, then he must also have a fire dragon pattern on his back. This was the source of the inheritance from Heaven's Cave Inheritance. After that, the two began dual cultivation. Their bodies were tightly connected, and they operated the art of joyous unification. After a full day, both Yang Kai and Su Yan felt that their strength had improved. The improvement wasn't much, but the biggest benefit was that the yuan qi in their bodies had become pure. The art of joyous unification allowed their yuan qi to melt and temper. As the number of dual cultivation increased, the yuan qi in their bodies would only become more and more condensed. After dual cultivation, Yang Kai couldn't resist the temptation and ravaged Su Yan again. Gently putting on Kai Yang's clothes, Su Yan's beautiful eyes were filled with a hint of lust and satisfaction. She was really afraid. Kai Yang was now like a tireless fighting machine. His ferocious thrusts, again and again, made her feel weak and powerless. She was afraid that if she didn't put on Yang Kai's clothes, she wouldn't be able to escape his clutches. After putting on the clothes, the two hugged each other and lay down on the stone bed. There was no need to talk about their feelings, each could feel the other's thoughts. Right? Your speculation came true. Su Yan laid in Yang Kai's arms and suddenly said, "What speculation?" Yang Kai played with a strand of her hair, enjoying the peace after the storm. "A few months ago, didn't you say that the appearance of Heaven's Cave Inheritance might involve a lot of people? Outsiders came?" Yang Kai's expression became serious. And the central capital's 8 great families didn't send anyone, but after the various families and sects heard that the Heaven's Cave Inheritance appeared here, many masters came. Now, they are trying to win over the disciples who have entered the Heaven's Cave Inheritance. Whether it is High Heaven Pavilion, Blood Battle Gang, or Storm Hall, many disciples have been recruited. What kind of people came from High Heaven Pavilion? Yang Kai asked, a trace of relief in his heart. No wonder when he returned to the sect that night, he felt a lot of divine senses sweep past him. It turned out that they were the masters of the various families and great forces. Xian Province's Dong family, Yun Province's Bai family, Chuanzhou's Purple Fern Valley, these 3 great forces, as well as many other great forces, are secretly lurking in Black Plum Town. Dong family? Yang Kai's heart moved. What kind of conditions did they offer you? Kai Yang asked. Su Yan was the #1 disciple of the 3 sects, and she was also the most likely person to have obtained the inheritance of the Heaven's Cave Inheritance. The 3 great forces would definitely want to recruit Su Yan, so the price they offered would naturally not be low. If they help me break through to the immortal ascension boundary within 2 years, they will give me all the pills and artifacts they have, and my status will be the same as that of an elder. What a big deal! Yang Kai smiled gently. What are your conditions? Marry them. Sure enough, I won't agree. Su Yan snuggled into Yang Kai's arms. Although they suspect that I have obtained the inheritance, they don't have any conclusive evidence. So they didn't go too far, but I've been living in High Heaven Pavilion for the past few days. The young lords of these 3 great forces are all here, right? Yang Kai sneered. If you want to chase a beauty, you naturally need the young lords to come forward and win her heart, but these people obviously miscalculated. Not to mention that Su Yan was already his woman and had an inseparable relationship with him. Even without these connections with Su Yan's personality, it was impossible for her to agree. The Ice Heart's secret art allowed her to not worry about anything, so how could these things be enough to move her? Su Yan nodded slightly, reaching out and stroking Yang Kai's cheek. You don't have to worry, I only belong to you. I'm not worried, Yang Kai grinned. If they can move you, they can use their means. After a moment of silence, Yang Kai frowned. But I'm still very unhappy, damn, they dare to have ideas about this father's woman. Su Yan pursed her lips and smiled, feeling somewhat sweet in her heart. Even if she had no desires, when she saw Yang Kai jealous, she couldn't help but feel a burst of happiness. After dawn, Su Yan left. Yang Kai began to organize the things he had obtained during this time, glancing around his cave mansion and couldn't help being secretly surprised. He found that his cave mansion had greatly changed. When he left, this was just a cold and dark cave. But now, this cave was like a new home. Not only were there tables and chairs, but there were also many pots of flowers. There were also many calligraphy and paintings hanging on the walls. There were decorations everywhere. Even the stone bed had a warm and comfortable bedding, which he hadn't noticed when he was fooling around with Su Yan for so long. These should be the result of Xia Ningchang and Su Yan's transformation. The transformation was quite good. Walking to the entrance of the cave, Yang Kai saw the yin-yang monster ginseng hanging its head dispiritedly, its facial features scrunched together as if it was angry. When Yang Kai returned that night, this sentient world spirit ginseng had greeted him, but received no response, so it couldn't help feeling depressed. The yin-yang monster ginseng was also well taken care of. The yang qi here was very rich, so Su Yan only needed to give it a little yuan qi every few days. Yang Kai chuckled, squatted down, and fed it 2 drops of yang liquid, which immediately made the yin-yang monster ginseng happy. Sitting down cross-legged beside the yin-yang monster ginseng, Yang Kai's thoughts flashed, and the wordless black book appeared in his hand. These days, every time he broke through, whether it was a minor realm or a great realm, Yang Kai would examine the wordless black book, hoping to pry into its mysteries. But every time he came in high spirits, only to return in disappointment. After a few times, Yang Kai was no longer as enthusiastic as before. The black book had already helped him a lot, so even if he couldn't get anything from it in the future, Yang Kai was confident he could grow stronger. Thinking so, he couldn't help feeling much better. It was better to rely on oneself than to rely on others. No matter how good the black book was, if he didn't work hard, it would be useless. This time, it was just a habitual examination. Yang Kai didn't expect to get anything from it, so he casually turned to the 5th page and poured yuan qi into the black book. Unlike before, when the stone sank into the sea, the black book actually reacted this time. Huh! Yang Kai couldn't help but feel excited, staring at the black book with wide eyes while continuing to pour yuan qi into it. Layers of ripples spread outwards, and soon after, rays of golden light appeared from the black book. However, unlike before, these rays of golden light did not emerge from the black book. Instead, they connected together, densely packed together, like a complex array. Not long after, a line of large words appeared. Medicine King's Valley, Myriad Drug Pond. A moment later, this line of large words disappeared, and the golden light on the black book also gradually disappeared. Yang Kai frowned. This time was very different from before. The black book didn't give him anything but instead gave him the name of a place. Chapter 204. Medicine King's Valley. Yang Kai naturally knew about it. This was a very special force. The valley was filled with alchemists who were proficient in alchemy. The people in Medicine King's Valley were not necessarily strong, nor were their methods. Their overall combat strength could even be said to be inferior to a first-rate force, only slightly stronger than a second-rate force. However, it was this faction that had a much longer history than any of the other factions. It was said that the Flowing Time Great Emperor had been around for thousands of years. Over the years, even many super forces had been wiped out in the long river of history, but Medicine King's Valley was still immortal. Its status was transcendent. Even the central capital's 8 great families did not dare underestimate the existence of Medicine King's Valley. Because every year, many cultivators would bring materials to Medicine King's Valley to ask the alchemy masters for help in alchemy. Medicine King's Valley was inextricably linked to any force. In other words, whoever dared to harm Medicine King's Valley would be making an enemy of the entire world. There was a rumor that in the past, a sect master of one of the great sects had gone to Medicine King's Valley to ask the alchemy masters for help, but for some reason he was refused. The sect master flew into a rage out of humiliation and actually killed the alchemist who refused. This was a big mistake. With a single call from Medicine King's Valley, this great sect was annihilated in a single night. Rumors were not necessarily true, but there was no smoke without fire. From this, it could be seen how terrifying the influence of Medicine King's Valley was. And the Myriad Drug Pond was a forbidden area of Medicine King's Valley. It was rumored that miracles often occurred there. Many proficient alchemists had obtained the insights of the alchemy ancestors of Medicine King's Valley. The wordless black book displayed such a line of words. This made Xianxia somewhat confused. Could it be that he had to go to Medicine King's Valley's Myriad Drug Pond to find something? Although he had such a guess, Xianxia definitely would not go now. First of all, he knew nothing about alchemy. If he went there, he would only be driven out. Second of all, he needed to improve his strength first. Then he would think of a good way to safely infiltrate Medicine King's Valley and wait for an opportunity. Putting away the wordless black book, Xianxia opened his hand and with a suction force, a package on the ground flew over. This bag of items was all lost by the overseas powers 300 years ago. Now that they had fallen into his hands, he should make use of them. When he was on Hidden Island, Xianxia wanted to refine an artifact for his own use. But at that time, because he was still overseas, he was afraid of triggering the restrictions in these artifacts and being detected by the sect they belonged to. But now it was different. He had returned to High Heaven Pavilion. It was 108,000 miles away from the ocean. Even if the restriction was activated, it wouldn't be able to transmit such a far distance. If he used it carefully in the future, there was no need to worry about any problems. There were 3 artifacts. Apart from the Tai seal, which required a special heart mantra to activate, the remaining one was a sword and a blood begonia. The sword was 3 feet and 3 inches long, and its entire body was crimson red, as if there was blood flowing within it. After probing it slightly, Xianxia was surprised to hear a miserable shriek coming from within the sword. The murderous aura was oppressive, disturbing one's mind. If a person with a weak mind heard this sound, he would most likely become the demon race on the spot and fall into the evil path forever. This ominous weapon was the Azura sect's most precious artifact, the Azura sword. Xianxia was overjoyed because he felt quite close to this sword. The murderous aura it exuded was very similar to the aura it exuded when he displayed the unyielding will. It was precisely this kind of similarity. Because of this, there wasn't much of a barrier between him and the sword. This was good, at least a heaven-grade top-rank artifact. Moreover, it was a sword of slaughter. With this sword in hand, one's attack power would sharply increase. Putting down the Azura sword, Xianxia then picked up the crimson blood begonia. It had the appearance of a begonia flower, but it looked incomparably enchanting. The petals were as sharp as knives, exuding a strange and dangerous aura. Even after being sealed for 300 years, it still couldn't erase the murderous aura of this begonia flower. Another killing artifact. In the past, the Falling Flowers cult must have relied on this artifact to kill countless enemies, dyeing it red like blood. Both artifacts were very good, as if they were tailor-made for him. Xianxia looked at one and then at the other, somewhat hesitant to choose. After thinking for a moment, Xianxia steeled his heart and decided to refine both of them. In any case, it would just consume a bit more yuan qi in time. After making up his mind, just as he was about to start, some stones rustled down from above. Xianxia looked up, the corners of his mouth rising into a smile. Only 2 people knew the location of his cave mansion, One was Su Yan, the other was Xianxia. Su Yan had just left, so she definitely wouldn't have returned, so there was no need to guess who the other person was. Sure enough, a moment later, Xianxia flew in from above. Yang Kai was blocking the entrance, so the two almost collided. Yang Kai leaned to the side and pulled her back, allowing her to safely land beside him. Smiling at her, he said, "Little senior sister, I'm back." Xianxia's eyes were watery, unable to hide the joy and excitement of reuniting after such a long time. Her face was still covered with a veil, and her forehead was still dotted with the sapphire, so when she heard Yang Kai say so lightly, she blinked her eyes and almost cried. A few months ago, when he left, he didn't even say goodbye, only leaving behind a letter. Now that he was back, he didn't even tell her. He was really too cruel. Looking at her red eyes, Kai Yang didn't dare to speak any more nonsense, for fear that he would accidentally make her cry. "How did you know I was back?" Yang Kai tried to divert her attention. "Su Yan told me." Xianxia sniffled, resisting the bitterness in her heart. Wringing her clothes, she faintly said, "If she didn't tell me, I wouldn't have known." "I was just about to tell you," Yang Kai said with a guilty conscience. "Really?" Xianxia looked up, her eyes filled with joy. "Of course." Yang Kai nodded. The little senior sister was very easy to coax, so her disappointment and grievance were quickly dispersed, leaving only joy and happiness. "At least you still have a little conscience." Xianxia pouted. "I also brought you a gift." Yang Kai lied through his teeth. "No need." Although she said this, Xianxia clearly smiled, her eyes curved into crescents, her heart filled with sweetness and satisfaction. "What gift?" She was curious again. Yang Kai faintly smiled, stood up, and walked in front of another large package. He reached out and opened it, pointing to a large package of rare treasures, some medicinal herbs. "So many." Xianxia was shocked. She walked forward, and with just a glance, she knew the names and grades of these herbs. "Don't you need to take pills when you cultivate? See if there's anything you need and just take it." Yang Kai was very generous, but he also felt quite guilty. He went out and didn't think to bring back a gift for Su Yan and Xianxia. He really shouldn't have. "I don't need it." Xianxia checked the herbs one by one, then raised her head and said, "I'll help you refine them into pills." "That's too troublesome." Who knew how many days it would take to refine this large package of herbs into pills? "It's not troublesome." Xianxia chuckled. "When I refine pills, I'm also cultivating. Moreover, it's much faster than when I meditate. The higher the grade of the herbs I refine, the more benefits it will bring to me. Junior brother, bringing back so many materials for me to practice with is already the best gift." "You're not lying to me?" Yang Kai looked at her suspiciously. "I'm not lying," Xianxia said angrily. "Ahem, I'm not lying either," Yang Kai said awkwardly. "Since that's the case, then I'll have to trouble little senior sister. And you can go do your own thing. I'll refine my own pills." Xianxia was obviously very happy. Yang Kai looked at her for a while and found that she was very familiar with these herbs. She quickly sorted out the large package of herbs and organized them. Smiling, Yang Kai also walked to the entrance of the cave and began to busy himself. Inside the cave, Xianxia lightly hummed as she used her amazing alchemy skills. She refined many herbs into medicinal liquids, then condensed them into pills. Yang Kai focused on using Yuan Qi to refine the Azura sword. Time passed little by little, and as Xianxia refined more and more pills, the large package of materials gradually dwindled. When she grew tired of refining, she would stop to rest and look at the back of the figure sitting at the entrance of the cave. After a while, she would be satisfied and continue to refine pills. Every day, Xianxia had to go out. After all, Meng Wuya treated her like a treasure. If one day she went missing, old man Meng would definitely search for her, causing unnecessary trouble. After 4 or 5 days, the Azura sword in Yang Kai's hand gradually connected with his mind. Yang Kai could increasingly feel the tyrannical power and evil qi of this killing artifact. Worthy of a heaven-grade top-rank artifact, Just this one artifact alone was enough to raise Yang Kai's fighting strength to a whole new level. Guiding the Azura sword into his body, Yang Kai couldn't help gasping for breath. Spending so many days to refine it was not a small burden for Yang Kai. The small amount of Yang liquid left in the Dantian was once again consumed. I have to find a way to replenish my Yang liquid. Looking up, Yang Kai used his movement skill and flew out. After a while, he returned with 2 spirit grasses in his hands. This was a heart that was planted a few months ago. It was bought from Lan Chudai at that time. The 2 spirit grasses had long since matured, so Yang Kai brought them to Xia Ningchang and had her refine them into pills. After swallowing them, he finally condensed some Yang liquid. With enough Yang liquid, Yang Kai continued to refine the 1,000-blossoming blood begonia. After a few days, the falling flowers artifact was finally absorbed into Yang Kai's body. After obtaining 2 heaven-grade artifacts in a row, Yang Kai's strength had greatly increased. Although he was unable to use the full power of these 2 artifacts right now, as long as he continued to nourish them with Yuan Qi, one day they would be able to shine. The herbs had long since been refined by Xia Ningchang into a variety of pills, filling more than a dozen bottles. The lowest grade pills refined were earth grade while some were even heaven grade, their value immeasurable. If he ate all of these pills, Yang Kai estimated that he could at least raise his cultivation by 1 or 2 small realms. However, there were too many of them, so if he ate them all in one go, it would definitely take him a long time to refine them. Therefore, Yang Kai did not intend to consume them right now. It had been half a month since he returned to the sect, so it was time to go out and see the situation. The 3 great forces were currently in High Heaven Pavilion, and all 3 of their young lords had designs on Su Yen. How could Yang Kai just sit back and watch? That was his woman. Welcome to Immortal Cultivation Audiobooks, your gateway to the mystical world of Xianxia. Dive into legendary tales of martial arts, spiritual growth, and immortal ascension. Here, we bring you full-length English audiobooks of the best Wuxia and Xianxia stories, from young prodigies to ancient sect wars. Perfect for fans of Against the Gods, Martial World, and tales of demons and gods.